Chapter 1. Tybalt pulls the old mossy planks off the door and sets them down. He then grabs his old potato sack and steps onto the street. The stench of sewage hits his face like a bomb set off. He carefully closes the door and heads down. He walks on the dirty stone roads, in between the stone houses, some boarded up and some burned down. He passes by the rat-infested garbage and disposals thrown onto the street that no one dares pick up. When he gets to the market, he sees an old, feeble man squirming and yelling for help. The man was covered by nothing else than a cloth that may have once been white. Whenever he moved, he could get a glimpse of his arms. He was swollen all over his underarm, as if many black pods the size of chicken eggs clung onto his body. He heard the man ludicrously yelling about how demise was soon to come to all people, whether they were birds or not. He kept on walking, as if nothing had happened. He could never stop thinking about his destination. Whenever he entered the bazaar, he feels as if all his worries were released from his back. The bright, colorful sky was enough to make everyone forget about the world outside. The music was joyously playing while people were drinking and eating. You could hear the laughter and talks from the crowd. Each booth was a treasure island in the infinite sea of people. But when he had been there for the last couple of days, everything was different. No longer could you hear the energy radiating from the music, or the laughter coming from the people walking around. It felt like a dead sea. He walked up to the fruit stand and talked to Arthos, an old skinny man who never smiled, but was never sad. "Good afternoon, Tybalt. Same as always," says Arthos in a very barbaric accent. "Not today, Arthos," replied Tybalt. He leans in closer and softly says, "I came for herbs. I heard that they help avoid the death these days." "Of course. Very popular these past few days. Which ones will you like?" "I hear that mints will do fine. Give me half a pound." "Okay, let me get some." Arthos scratches his head and looks around and searches for the herbs. He has barrels containing herbs and spices with all the colors of the rainbow and more. "Here you go," he says as he hands Tybalt the pouch. "Thank you, Arthos." Hands 2 shining pounds. "Have a good day." "Good day, sir." Walking swiftly back home, the bag tied to his rope belt, he feels as if it is the weight of the world pulling him down. He jumps across the puddles and mountains of filth on streets, trying to stay as clean as possible. Ignoring the cries of agony coming from dirty beggars who have contracted the plague, he keeps going. When he reaches his door, he frantically opens it and places the planks back inside it. He made it. He takes out the mints and herbs he bought and places them in pots all over the house. He then heads up the stairs and places herbs on the altar and around his bed. When he is done, he kneels and starts praying. The altar contains lit, red candles placed on an iron table below a painting of the Lord. He thinks about the time before the plague, how life was easier and safer. Now, each night he sees a spectacle of shadows dancing to fire in the streets. He stands up and heads to his bed. He pulls the covers over his body and goes to sleep. Chapter 2. He woke up with what felt like 10 pounds of sheets on him. He tried to push the sheet off of him, but he could barely raise it. He started to crawl on his back to the edge of the bed, to fall off. When he fell, he felt a great headache pain. He didn't hit his head. He tried to get up, but his legs and arms felt like anchors. He started climbing down the stairs when he hears someone rapping on his door. "Who is it?" he says feebly. "It's me, your brother Leaf," replied a worried voice. "Let me in." "Coming." Tybalt started crawling to the door. He feels as if those 10 short feet were 10 long miles. 30 quick seconds were 30 excruciating days. He grabs anything he can hold on to pull him forward. Chairs, the table. Scratching on the floor, he finally makes it to the door. He reaches up for the doorknob from the floor and pulls himself up. Hanging onto the knob, he slides the planks off and opens the door. Leaf comes rushing in, with a worried face and quick movements. "I heard the plague was contagious around here." "Tybalt, what are you doing on the floor?" he said as he turns to close the door. He picks him up, barely being able to stand, shaking hard Tybalt gets put in the chair. He starts to sweat and shake even more. "What's wrong with you, Tybalt?" asked Leaf in a worried voice. Water," Tybalt barely manages to say. Leaf hurriedly steps around the house and grabs a bucket. He fills it up with water and brings it to Tybalt. "Here, drink it." He starts to say, but is cut off by the water flowing down the lips and into his mouth. "Let's get you upstairs." "Can't." Leaf starts to see that Tybalt is sick. He hurriedly gets a blanket from the couch and uses it to carry Tybalt. "I know that. Come on. I'll help you." Climbing up the stairs was as if they were climbing a mountain. They struggled to climb up the groaning steps that seemed to break, until they finally made it. Leaf helped Tybalt to his bed and laid him down carefully. Though no one said it, they both knew what was going on. I need you to stay here while I get a doctor," Leaf said nervously. Leaf started to turn back. He didn't know what to do. His mind was racing with thoughts on what to do. Should he leave Tybalt? Should he stay and risk being infected as well? Leaf hurriedly rushed down the stairs, holding his rough hand on his mouth, holding his breath. Tripping on the last step but keeping his breath, he struggled to get up. He ran to the door and crashed against it. He could see dust particles fall from the top, falling like snowflakes. He threw the planks away and ran out the door, closing it with an explosion as he ran to the merchants. Chapter 3. The sun rose as soon as Leaf stopped at the door. He put the bucket around his neck, the sweet aroma of nature rising to his nose. He opened the door and rushed inside. With one hand on the pouch of crushed emeralds, as fine as sand, and the other hand holding a pouch of boiled, cut onions, he rushes upstairs. He sees Tybalt on the floor and tries to help him up by carrying him by his underarms. As soon as he touches his underarms, Tybalt yells in pain, as if he were being impaled with sharp stones, and he lets go. Leaf starts to remove the garments of his brother. When he was sliding the top off, Tybalt was groaning with pain, as if his body was being scraped with gravel. The plague had gotten worse. His lymph nodes on his underarm area were swelling. It was as if black eggs were attached to his skin. Leaf pulled him up by his arms and sat him down on the bed. Grabbing one of the pouches, he pulls out a spoon and scoops up the emeralds. He leads the spoon to his brother's chapped lips. His hand is shaking, and some emerald powder falls off due to its finesse. Tybalt takes the emeralds, but has a hard time eating it. He tries chewing them, but they scratch his teeth. Then he gives up and swallows. Leaf then grabs his other pouch and gives him a spoonful of onions. This was tougher to digest. As soon as he took a bite, the foul stench of onion emanated the room. "I'm doing everything I can, Tybalt," said Leaf. "I will get a doctor to come cure you." Tybalt grunted and writhed in his bed. This alarmed Leaf and made him back away. "I will come back with a doctor." Chapter 4. I have been experiencing my last days on this earth this week. I can't move. I have swollen lymph nodes. I've had many headaches. I've hallucinated. The list extends as far as you can think. My brother has visited me for the past couple of days, bringing me remedies and anything he finds helpful. But today was a day that changed. He was not the only one that visited me. As soon as the man walked in the door, the atmosphere changed. I felt like I was alone, meeting death. The man was dressed in all black. He had a long, heavy coat and a top hat. No part of his body was visible. He wore gloves and even a mask. The mask resembled a bird. It had a long beak with goggles that protected his eyes. He held a black cane that had a silver hourglass with wings spread. It was a plague doctor. I had heard of them before, but I had never seen one. It was said that they knew how to treat the illness. He stood by the side of my bed. I could hear his heavy breathing. He knew how to treat the illness. He slowly brought out a bag and pulled out a jar. Inside were many black snail-looking things floating in water. He carefully put one out and placed it on me as I was writhing awkwardly, trying to avoid it. As soon as he placed it, it started to move. It felt as if someone was placing a slimy, wet cloth on my skin. After a couple of seconds, it started to suck my blood. It was a leech. The doctor kept on placing them on my body and measuring their distances. After about an hour, my upper body was dripping with blood. Then the doctor removed the leeches. He then leaves and comes back a few moments later. He carries a strangling chicken upside down by its feet. He rubbed it against my skin, especially around the swollen areas. The swollen nose were now pure black and worse. After that, he states that the appointment is over and he will come back tomorrow. He then puts everything away and heads out the door. Chapter 5. I know these are my last days. We have an unspoken agreement with the doctor about it. Leaf has been talking to me about how nothing can work now. Although I do not have the strength to talk and forget most of what has been going on, he tries to hold on.